The April 28th, 2010 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee will now come to order. Is this on? I'll hold it for another 30 seconds here. I'll do it as they're going. We have a quorum. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Miss Andrews, Mr. Barker, Mr. Bronson, Chairman Daniele,
Here.
Mr. Haney, Mr. Hyder, Mr. McCann, Mr. O'Brien, Dr. Quattro, Mr. Tucciarello, Mr. Yolovich, Miss Andrews, Mr. Bronson, Mr. Haney.
Are there any speakers signed up for the public forum this evening?
There are no public forum speakers signed up this evening.
And is there anyone present who would like to address this committee at this time who did not sign up to speak?
Nope.
There being none, the next item is the approval of the minutes. You have before you the minutes from the March 24th, 2010 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee in your folder. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by end of day today. Next item on the business, next item is new business. Madam Clerk.
Referral 10-130, acceptance of the
Moved by
grant.
Legislator Yolovich, seconded by Legislator Barker. Any comments? Legislator Tucciarello.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I would like to know why this grant is for a 9-month period of time instead of a full year, please.
Through the chair, my name is Paul DeLello. I'm a lieutenant with the Sheriff's Office. The state wants to align all grants for the same ending and start period. This one was typically from March to, April to March. It will now, this year's will go from April to December, and then next year it'll be January to December.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, did the lack of state money contribute to this substantial decrease in funding?
Through the chair, yes.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Any other discussion on this item? There being no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries.
Referral 10-132.
Moved by Legislator Barker, seconded by Legislator McCann. Any discussion? Legislator O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I see that this referral talks about a kind of a stopgap period for just from May 15th through November 30th, an extension of an existing agreement. Is there, through you, Mr. Chairman, has there been some discussion about when the new request for proposals go out, for how long term that agreement would be when we put it out for proposals? Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, through you, we anticipate issuing the RFP this month, and we would anticipate the term to be 15 years.
Thank you. So it'll be a 15-year term like the last one, and presumably have an end date so we don't have this problem in 15 years that it would not expire in the middle of or the beginning of the marina season, but presumably that would be for a period ending like in November or December, 15 years from now. Is that a fair assumption through you, Mr. Chairman?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, and lastly, the rental payment that's anticipated by this referral of $34,000, is that based on a prorated amount of what the current annual rental has been under the existing agreement? or how is the $34,000 arrived at, I guess is another way of phrasing the question.
Through the chair, that's the existing yearly payment for the last year of the contract.
Okay, so that, so they'll just pay what they have been paying annually for a period that starts from this year through November 30th, 2010. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Legislator Haney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Following up on Legislator O'Brien's question, the transmittal says the rent is a fixed $34,000 plus 3% of gross sales. Do you have any idea roughly what the 3% of gross sales amounts to?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Larry Staub, Director of Parks. That 3% of gross sales is approximately $8,000 to $10,000 a year.
So the total gross rent would be something like $42,000 a year or something?
Exactly.
Okay. And I guess I was trying to tie that back to the budget, and in the revenues of the Parks Department, Parks Administration, there's two lines: rental of real property, $22,000, and rental other, $20,000, for a total of $42,000. Is that $42,000, or is that something else?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this is located in operations and concessions, not in administration.
Oh, so this $42,000 of rental income in administration is something else?
Correct.
Okay. So over in operations?
You would find that and a number of other items.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion on this referral? There being no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries.
Referral 10-133.
Moved by Legislator McCann, seconded by Legislator Quattro. Any discussion? Legislator Barker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chairman, can the administration please tell us how the public will be engaged in the development of this plan?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, as I explained at Recreation and Education Committee yesterday, this is inherently a public process. Public will be engaged at every step of the way, beginning with an initial kickoff meeting, which we anticipate pending the approval of the legislature to be probably in June. And with monthly Parks Advisory Committee meetings, we'll have updates, and we'll also have a number of public workshops dealing with first input prior to any master plan, and then along the way as the master plan is developed.
And I have a question. Were there any other firms that submitted, that responded to the RFP? And if so, who were they?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, there were 18 firms that initially expressed interest in this project. That was winnowed down to 5 firms that we invited to submit an RFP. And of those 5, 4 actually sent us proposals, and EDR was the firm deemed to be most qualified for this project.
And where is EDR based?
They have a local office.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Legislator Haney.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, looking at the draft CIP for next year, we've had to, and I don't disagree with this given our fiscal situation, but we've had to push off implementation work in several of the parks to future years. We've had and we've got a significant inventory now of inventory isn't a very good word. Backlog, I guess, is better, of work called for in some master plans that we've done that is probably going to take several years to work through. I guess my question is, does it really make sense to do this master plan now when we know that we're not going to be able to fund the actual improvements they might recommend for 3, 4, 5 years? Or should we be waiting 2 or 3 years so that the master plan is being done closer to when we might actually be able to do the work?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that's an excellent question.
Thank you.
I would say that we're doing the master plan at exactly the right time in the process for Powder Mills Park. Powder Mills Park is one of only 2 parks in the park system that does not have a master plan at the time. The other one being Owatka, which is on the CIP schedule that you received for your approval in this year. It's not too early because we're going to start the master plan process in 2010, continuing through 2011. In 2012, we are programmed to have design funding, and in 2013, we're programmed to have construction funding. So I think that it's a very logical time to do the planning for this.
Is that for Powder Mill in
Yes.
2012 and 2013?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's for Powder Mill. I would point out that this administration has been much kinder to the Parks Department in the CIP process and allowing us to program money in actual budget years than prior administrations.
Any other discussion? There being none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries.
Referral 10-134, amend
Moved by
resolution.
Legislator Quattro, seconded by Legislator Tucciarello. Legislator Tucciarello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration. Have we engaged in any discussions with these entities that we're looking to authorize an agreement with to let them know what's going to be available to them, for lack of a better term, to market to them, so this way everyone's aware of the ability to lease equipment from other partners in the community, and also to be able to purchase alternative fuels.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, as you may know, this agreement has been in place for roughly a year, and I should say this, I'm Mike Garland, Director of Environmental Services, and I'm here with Melvin Rose, the county's fleet manager. This agreement's been in place for just over a year, and it's been utilized by the towns, the city, and others. So the availability of that equipment, I think, has been made known through this agreement to others. Specifically, MCC has an interest relative to our maintenance ability, as well as the fueling ability as well, too. So they're familiar with what's going on. I think the word has gotten out, if you will, too, to other entities that this arrangement is available. And through this referral, we're able to really broaden this level of support to those entities identified in the referral.
Thank you, and through you again, Mr. Chairman. Just want to quickly talk about savings. I'm assuming that Monroe County will see a cost savings through this type of program, but also a community-wide savings through the other entities that may be sharing in this. Will they be saving some money for our community also?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, again, the spirit of the agreement is to really reduce, say, our collective costs. If each municipality or each governmental entity had to procure the equipment that it required to run its operation, it certainly would elevate costs, I think, in the community, towns, villages, and other municipalities, public benefit corporations. What this does is it makes equipment available to others that may otherwise require them to buy that piece of equipment. And we can make equipment available that we may not be using or may not have a priority need for at a particular time. We can make that available to a town, municipality, whomever, and it precludes them from actually having to buy that. So in and of itself, I think it generates savings because it prevents avoided costs, if you will.
Thank you very much.
Any other discussion? Legislator Haney.
For you, Mr. Chairman, what kind of machinery, tools, and equipment are we talking about?
The equipment that we have ranges from bulldozers, excavators, skid steers, planers, rollers, road wideners, trailers, hydroseeders, and dump trucks.
Okay, so it's basically equipment that we're sharing. I mean, tools to me means hammers and saws. I assume we're not talking.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that is correct.
Okay.
It may include trailers, tub grinders, windrow turners, and generators.
Do we rent this equipment to the other entities, or do we just let them use it, or how does it work?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the primary use of the equipment has been to towns who are performing road work on county roads for Director Rice and the Department of Transportation. In other cases, we're sharing services between the municipalities, but predominantly the use has been for county road projects.
Okay. So if MCC needs a front-end loader, let's say, what is it, a first-come, first-served process? If we're not using it next week, you can come and get it and use it? Or?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
And they don't pay us anything for it?
The agreement has the ability to charge an entity for that, but typically we try to identify, say, a shared service, if you will, barter for services to avoid that cost. But the agreement does allow us the ability to charge for a piece of equipment.
Okay. Do they sign some kind of an indemnity agreement that if they damage it while they have it or drive it off a cliff or something, that they're responsible for it?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes, they do in the agreement itself.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on this referral? There being none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries.
Referral 10-135, authorize
Moved
a
by
contract.
Legislator Tucciarello, seconded by Legislator Yolovich. Any discussion? Legislator Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And through you to the administration, what other contracts, if any, does Ms. Ertl have with the county, either now or has she had since she retired?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this is Dr. Andrew Doniger, Director of the Monroe County Health Department. Barbara Ertl has only this contract with the county.
Thank you. And are there any other retirees or county retirees that have similar contracts with the county currently?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, during the work that we did around H1N1, we did contract with some of our recently retired nurses, but I can't think of any others that we have contracts with that are sort of similar to this, a special project that might go on for several months.
Thank you. And as we discussed last night, this is for about a 3-month period. Can you tell me what the plan is for after August 31st for providing these services?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this is really a sort of a research grant that has been funded by an outside agency. We're hoping that the information that we learn from this grant will help us integrate best practices into our regular operations. Sometimes it's not entirely clear what's the best way to handle a particular child or a particular family. And in a more rigorous environment with research dollars, we're able to answer that question. And hopefully the information then that we gain will be able to be translated into our regular operations.
Through the chair, though, specifically for providing the services that Ms. Ertl is providing under this grant, do you have any plan now in terms of who or how those services will be provided after August 31st? Because my understanding is that the grant itself is for, or the program is a 2-year period.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are a number of different recipients of funding under this grant to provide services to families with children in foster care. The different kinds of services include family counseling, the coaching of the families, the individual therapy for the children, and what exactly we would be providing for each individual child or family may be a little bit different now based on what we learn during this year. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to use many of the same vendors that we have been able to use during this research phase, if you will, during the, I guess, what you would call the sort of routine operations phase after the grant is finished.
Through the chair then, so is it expected that whatever sort of work that Ms. Ertl is going to be doing for the next 3 months, that after that point in time there won't be a need for that specific type of work to be performed by anybody?
That's correct.
Okay,
The work that Ms. Ertl is going to be doing is basically keeping track of sort of the research aspects of this. The routine operations we presumably will be able to handle through the staff in the Department of Health and in the Department of Social Services that sort of partner for the care of the children in foster care.
Okay, thank you very much.
Legislator Haney.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, do we have an estimated date when the new facility for the Starlight Pediatric Center will be opening?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the plan is September 1st. As we get closer to the date, we will be able to get a better fix on whether we're going to hit that right on the mark. But my understanding is that we're pretty close to being on schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on this referral? There being none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries.
Referral 10-136.
Moved by
acceptance.
Legislator Yolovich, seconded by Legislator Barker. Legislator Yolovich.
Chairman, just a very simple question. Approximately how many people are served by this grant annually, Doctor?
Through you, Mr. President, this program will serve approximately 60 patients per year. I think I can get into more detail about that if you're interested, but that's about that's a pretty good estimate.
No, that's a good enough answer. I just was kind of curious to to see how many people were served by that amount of money. Thank you.
And thank you, Doctor, for the promotion to President. I'm sure President Adair. I'm honored. Yes.
Does that cost me a quarter?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Doctor, can you explain? Oh, I'm sorry.
Legislator Haney.
Doctor, can you explain what an emerging community is?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the epidemiology of HIV infection in this country has been changing. Obviously, initially it was an infection that predominantly affected gay men. It has slowly moved into some other populations, obviously intravenous drug users, and more recently into racial and ethnic minority communities. I think that the name of this funding stream was really one to encourage us to attend to the fact that there were changing, that there was a changing epidemiology of HIV infection in this country, and that we should be looking forward to whichever populations were emerging. But I don't think that there was any more specific intent than that.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on this referral? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries.
Referral 10-137.
Moved by Legislator Barker, seconded by Legislator McCann. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries.
Referral 10-139.
Moved by
authorization.
Legislator McCann, seconded by Legislator Quattro. Any discussion on this referral? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Are there any other matters to come before this committee? There being no further business, the April 28th, 2010 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting is scheduled for May 26th, 2010 at 6 p.m.